All right. How y'all doing out there? I said y'all because we in Texas.
Y'all.
And, this is Color Commentary. Colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. I'm your host, Markus Lloyd. With me, as always, is Antwuan Malone.
Yo. What's up, everyone?
Yes.
A big yeehaw to the
I did start with a little bit
you
of
did
y'all.
start with a little y'all.
Like...
And in a lot of ways, today's episode is centered right here in the
the heartbeat of Texas.
In the heartbeat of Texas.
Don't mess with Texas because here's what happens when you go through it.
Yeah, at least too much of it. So anyway, welcome to the show. Thank you for clicking whatever you clicked to hear us.
That's right. And if you are checking in with us for the first time, we invite you to just go back, check out some Color Commentary episodes so you can continue to know more about what we do, where we're coming from. This particular podcast is powered by Threaded, which is a biblical racial reconciliation and unity and justice organization. And so Color Commentary is a way that we try to communicate out about the things that are going on in the culture and the world. But then we also, want to try to bring it in and connect it to the church. Yeah. The church as in both the individuals who are Christians, but also the organizational aspects of the church. And so that'll be a little bit what we're talking about today, I think.
100%. 100%. Hey, if you want to support us, the easiest way to do it is to hit that subscription button, especially if you're on YouTube. So we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers in YouTube. We want you to be part of that journey, not just with us learning stuff and having conversations, but your support. Your support in that way would be great. It's very easy to do. So say yes. Click the subscribe button.
That's right.
And then go on the journey with us.
That's right. Yeah, go on the journey. And as you go today, choose to stay. Right? Choose to stay on the journey. Because not a lot of people choose to stay in the places that they are.
Don't fly away.
No, they don't want to. People like to just see. They see what's going on. Maybe they see the people involved, and although they were a part of that particular podcast or place or community, then they go, man, something's changing. I'm gonna just take flight to go other places. Right? We're experiencing that a little bit here in our own spot. I know other people around the country are as well, but we've just noticed something really interesting in our own sort of neighborhood. So
right here in North Texas, I guess, or North Dallas. I don't know if
they call it North Texas. This is, in fact, North Dallas might not even claim us.
I'm terrible with that kind of stuff.
Oh, they'll go and then don't say it. Just let me say
geography of it. Like people
we
are
north.
X amount of city, and that's West Texas. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, so we're in the north part of Texas.
Just so you know. I do know we're not in the south.
Yeah. Well, yes, we're in the south, but we're not. We're in the north side. Yeah,
we're in it. Yeah. Okay. Well,
what's been happening here? In here that got you bunched up a bit.
So I was on TikTok, and was starting to get served a lot of stories around the Prosper area, the Frisco area. These are all suburbs in the Dallas area, and there are, if you don't know, the North Texas area has been growing like crazy over the last few years. I mean, just extending further north Dallas, just houses. It's been probably, I think it's probably the largest growing,
one of the fastest growing
areas in the country. And so housing has been there. It's been some housing booms, and it's all that. And it's just been a highly, growing area. This particular story is about how Prosper has shown up, and there's a bunch of houses for sale, where normally that they're still building in that particular area, but all these houses for sale, and the reason for the housing market, all those houses, the 400 to 800 houses, is because we suspect people are moving out because there's a high level of South Asian contingency growing in those particular cities. If you live here in Dallas, you know that we're a highly diverse city as far as just inhabitants, right? Black, white, Asian of all kinds, and Latino, X, and Hispanic. They're all over, everywhere. Everyone is everywhere. But particularly there's a concentration of South Asians in the north part of Dallas, and what is creating online is a lot of I was going to say vitriol, but a lot of conversation around Prosper. And what we're finding is that a lot of the white Americans in those contexts are now putting their houses up for sale and they want to leave, citing the reasons being
oh well, the neighborhood's just changed.
Elements of change. Let's go with that. That they don't feel quite as comfortable with. So it's TikToks. So I realize how that can be, but part of the internet. But I do think living here, I live near Prosper, and living near Prosper, like, yes, there is a very the population is shifting. So that part of the story is absolutely true. And what I'm seeing from the TikToks are coming from realtors. So they're not coming from some ideological background. They're like, hey, these houses, right? Their job is to sell homes and to track what's showing up and what isn't, and why people would want to sell or buy in a particular scenario. And it's these realtors that are posting these TikToks that are saying, hey, these are the things that we're hearing. Here is how we're understanding what to present as what to sell to people, and why people are buying and not buying in a particular area. So anyway, I just wanted to put it out there because I don't have an article to cite or anything like that. But why that's it felt like a credible thing for us to discuss.
Yeah, it is. Because I think everything that you're talking about, I mean, we can talk about it in sort of, numbers, if you will. Like, I've been in this area for over 20 years, and I've seen the growth of diversity. I mean, when we got up here into the Frisco area, like, let me just put it in geography for some folks, right? Like, you got Dallas, and if you head north on Dallas, if anybody's football fan, then if you like football, then you probably don't watch the Cowboys. But if you don't like football, and about the Cowboys, who they have their practice facility in a city called Frisco, and it's a very high affluent area that's been growing. It's surrounded by tollways. You got to pay to get in, pay to get out.
That's right.
But you keep going north of Frisco, and there's a community called Prosper that's up there. And what we see, because of some of the industries that have kind of dropped into the area for in North Dallas, there's been a huge growth in the population of South Indians and South Asians. And I've seen it over the course I've been here. My second house that I owned was actually in a neighborhood, and they built there was an Indian a temple that was built next door, and all of a sudden the population of our neighborhood just flipped. Like, it just turned, because they want to be close. They're very communal. This is a communal aspect is very key in an Indian culture, and so we were getting neighbors, and I was actually kind of excited about it. I have some dear friends who are Indian, and I wanted to get to know some of these folks. But I remember talking to a neighbor across the street from me, a white dude who went to a particular Baptist church in the area, and he would actually say stuff to me. He'd be like, and he would make fun of their names, as he was like, so-and-so down there. And I was like, that's not his name. His name is this. Right. And he was like, they're just coming here and just taking over everything. I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Our kids get a lot of diversity. He's like, I don't know. And even when I was on an Uber ride, I was taking an Uber once from when I dropped off my car at a place in McKinney, and I was heading home. And the Uber driver, I saw like an Indian family walking down the street, like with a stroller. And he even like huffed, and he was like, man, the face of McKinney sure is changing around here. And I was like, I know this fool didn't just say this with me in the car. Like, he feels so comfortable.
You feel like y'all are going to be on the same team on this.
He's like, look, I know we got problems, but we need to get together about this problem. I'm like, no, bro, you're not going to get me for that. No, I'm not going to do that. But I will say, it's not just, if people are like, it's not just white people. Like, there are other people who are struggling with this too. Like, I was out with a group of black dudes who I've known for 30 years. And one of them brought that up. He's like, man, these South Asians are coming in and taking over. They're the ones who have the plot. I was like, what are you talking about? Do you not hear yourself?
Yeah.
This is exactly what people said about us. And he was like, well, I don't care. They taking over everything. I was like, bro, you are not hearing how we are repeating this narrative.
Yeah.
And repeating and continuing to do the same things. And now those who were oppressed are now becoming the oppressor, right? That's unconscionable to me. I don't even understand what's going on with that. But I think it's an important thing for us to recognize that even from an anecdotal, I mean, I can look at, again, Frisco, which is just south of Prosper, their Asian population is around 26%, which when we got there, it was like 0.3% when we got there. And so it's growing exponentially.
Sure. Frisco, Plano,
I mean,
Carrollton,
it's the deal. And
Prosper
and
Salina.
It's really interesting to watch people engage.
Well, what's interesting, what caught my attention out of the story was we're in a space where we are contending for the conversation around what we see. And so what we see is that racism and various levels of prejudice continue to exist.
Yeah, that's it.
And
the more we try to say like this conversation is a phase,
and so people
needs to talk about it anymore. It's not important
because people are saying like, oh well, those who would call the whole conversation woke and all this, they were like, man, you're just hanging on to a problem that no longer exists.
Right.
We're in a post-racialized world, and therefore, man, you guys are just making it worse by continuing to talk about it. But this is another example of a pattern that has that I would say re-emerged. I guess I could say
it's shifting,
emerged.
It's reinventing itself
in our context, and that is that the whole white flight thing that we saw of, like you just made reference to. I would say before, but there still are like Black neighborhoods.
There are, there are,
and
Indian neighborhoods and white neighborhoods.
Right. So there is this. You can go to almost any city, and if you ask the right people, you can find out where the Black people are, or where you could ask those types of questions. So there is this kind of white flight or some sort of ethnic flight that happens on a regular basis that's worth notating as evidence maybe of continual racialized elements in society that require us to continue to ask ourselves, like you said, how much of that is seeping into the way we think about each other, and the decisions we make about even where we're going to live, whether we're on one side of that flight or the other side.
And it's hard, right? Because again, I think we want to say that we've come a long way.
Yeah.
But the way you find out how far you've come is when the stress hits you.
Right.
And this is what's hard, particularly in Texas, right? Because Texas is so big that you can just keep flying, right? You can just keep expanding out and call it new growth. I want new whatever. So you can keep justifying it to some extent.
You could make the case that North Texas was a kind of flight.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's hard. It's hard to pinpoint it. And you mentioned this idea of these enclaves. Like what we find is historically too, is that there would be these places where enclaves would sort of exist: Black neighborhood, Hispanic neighborhood, maybe even an Asian neighborhood. But again, it goes back to some of that conversation about, whether it's de facto or de jure segregation, right? De facto, well, it's just kind of how it works. De jure is, hey, there's something in which is happening from a system or society that's making this work. Right. So the reason why these neighborhoods are Black is not because Black people just happen to want to live together. It's because the way that they organize the city in such a way with resources and who could buy houses, who could own houses, who live in neighborhoods and get
sort of
funded,
sort
of redlining things. Right. Those things created these places. Now, what's going on in our area, right, is that historically there was a kind of socioeconomic line that was drawn, right, that you couldn't get into certain places. Black people couldn't get into certain neighborhoods because the kinds of jobs that they were allowed to have were not high producing economic jobs. Right. And so as the world has globalized and become smaller, we have a lot of people who move in from other places, other parts of the world. And I always say this, right? Like when people migrate, like not everybody migrates, like they can't. But those who do tend to have the financial backing and financial resources to be able to do it, and education to be able to do it. So you may know really like rich, intelligent Black people, right, from an American Black standpoint, but you're also very in touch with sort of those who aren't as rich and don't have the same economic or educational opportunities and therefore don't have the same education levels.
Right.
But when you run into a South Asian, these folks potentially, they came from India, they had the money to do it, and they had the education so they can get the high paying jobs. So economically, they're now not just in their own communities, they are in every community, right, and particularly
they can go wherever they can
afford. And historically in America, those communities where the economics was the definer tended to be predominantly white spaces for all the reasons we know historically. But now you got these folks who are from China and who from India, right, who from Nigeria. Like these cats are coming and they got loot and they got education and they moving next door to you. And of course you can be really like high on your horse, like I don't mind diversity, but when they move in next door and they start cooking their food and they start doing their religious things and they start doing hosting their celebrations, all of a sudden, like all that real big talk goes by the wayside, and
Yeah,
you
there was
start
a-
going back to the usual, like, something's changed. Maybe we should look a little north, right?
Yeah. And I mean, is that
wrong?
yeah, like, is that a legitimate? I can hear someone in the room like, but do I have to live there? Like, are you saying I'm a bad person if I want to move? And
The question is always about motivation,
Mhm.
right? Like, always about motivation. There's people who are upending their entire lives to move further north to get away from potentially schools that are better than the ones that they're going to.
Right.
The motivation is what I would say you have to really pray about. And this is again, this is a podcast. We're talking to Christians. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think for the Christian, here's the thing that I struggle with for the Christian who would be like, hey, what's wrong with that? Is if you subscribe to this beautiful picture that God gives us in Revelation 7:9, where all tribes and tongues and nations are there worshiping God. What you have to recognize is that setup where you have that kind of diversity is not just something that is good, but rather it's the way God thinks things should be. There's something about bringing all these people from different tribes and tongues and nations together that actually gives a fuller picture of what God's future is and what God's vision of the future is. And if God has a vision for it, it means it's good, right? And so what happens when all of a sudden, let's just say that you're in a neighborhood and it's all one thing. Let's just say it's all white, and all of a sudden this diversity starts to come in, and you're starting to get a little uncomfortable because you're having to go up against all of these different values, the different ways people talk, the way they communicate, the kind of music they listen to. But what I would say is, like, for the Christian, we should be longing for that, because that, if on one hand it creates the opportunity for us to really participate in this quote unquote Great Commission where Jesus tells us to go make disciples of all nations. Well, hey, check it out. You didn't even have to go nowhere.
Go across the street.
They literally came to your neighborhood. Congratulations, you're welcome. Right. Second piece is, let's just say, because really somewhere between 48 and 52% of all immigrants who are coming into the United States are actually Christian. So imagine that. Now, these folks may be moving right next door to you, and you now have access to another part of the body of Christ that will represent the Revelation 7:9 church in eternity. Right. You get an opportunity to actually live into what is happening in heaven, get to do it here on earth.
Right.
And so I would say, if you aren't finding some kind of resource or excitement around either one of those things, you should really check the motivation.
Yeah.
Right? I just think, just give us some evaluation through the scriptures, right? That's just me kind of going, God saying, I brought the nations to you, and I brought people who were Christians to you.
Yeah.
Great opportunities.
I brought the harvest and the harvest
harvesters
and the harvest
and
workers.
fellow harvest workers for the growing diversity in your area.
Right. Yes. So there's a beautiful picture, because between the two of them, God's like, hey, you might need some new skills to engage these people.
Sure.
This population, this new version, this demographic. But I'm also going to give you people who are used to dealing with this demographic, who believe what you believe.
That's right.
And so y'all can work together. And that provision, that beautiful gift of God, I think that could be a part of that, is something we'll miss if the only thing we can think about is,
I gotta get out of here.
Our level of comfort.
Yeah.
Our level of our version of life and a way of life, and our inability to make space for different enough that it would push us into some of that uncomfortable. And I'm one of those people, like, I'm not one of those people that would move because everyone's come in, but I am a person that is I try to minimize maintenance, and so it would be something for me to be like, man, I got to learn a new thing and different. I got to learn how to engage differently, like that. That would be work for me to do. So I can identify with I don't look for the easy way, right? I'm looking for the simple thing, and it's going to be much more simpler to sell my house to one of them and to go live somewhere where I don't have to do that, right? Because it's simpler. But I don't think that the scriptures call us to the simple life. It's a missional life.
What's interesting though for you though too is, like, you say that, but your whole life ultimately has been built around having to deal with people who are different than you every day. You have to do it in your house. You know what I mean? You got cultural things you got to deal with in your house with that Italian wonderfulness at home, right? That's a thing. And this is why, in some ways I push on Hispanic, Black, whoever is in there going, I can't believe these South Asians, I'm going to move and whatever. It's like, what? Are you friggin' kidding me? Like, that's what you've been doing, is adjusting and adapting and learning how to engage that. This is just a new version of how to engage it. And maybe, hey, I'm tired. I've been working how to just deal with white people all day long. I don't know if I can deal with somebody new. My roommate in college is South Asian and Indian, and he and I love him absolutely to death. He's been on the show before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We spent 3 years in an apartment together. It's just learning each other's nonsense, right? Like, we had to figure out, like, how does this Black dude and this Indian dude figure out how to make it work in a roommate relationship? And again, to this point, one of my best friends, we were on a call with him the other day, Antwuan and I, right? So all that to say, like, the Christian should be thinking in a different capacity. And this is where, again, you said there's, I feel like every show that we're always going to get back to this thing is how hard we work to maintain comfort and ease.
Yeah.
Like, all of this conversation is just literally, if I'm a Christian, it's all the most of what I'm fighting is discomfort and ease.
Yeah. You could make the case, though, in addition to the discomfort and ease, that some people would see these as threats to various levels of threats to the discomfort.
No, but keep going.
But religious threats. I don't want my kid growing up next to a pagan culture. To
know why they're in America.
Oh, they. I saw something where a guy was like, there was a on his street, there was a celebration or some sort of religious parade or something that was going on their street, and it was a ton of South Asian persons who were participating in this parade with the elephant, with the elephant picture. And so he was like, I never thought I would see anything like that on my street, and how uncomfortable he felt with that as a believer, and my kids are going to school with those kids. And to this person's credit, like, he was like, I don't know what to think about that. I don't know if I should be afraid of that or if I should, but his heart was leaning more toward, I don't want to deal with it. I want to get out of it. But so there's some discomfort in there, in that, what am I going to do with these new ways of life, these new religious, the new religious influence potentially on my kids or on my family, all of that. So some of it is discomfort. I guess threat is discomfort.
But, sure.
But there's those type of religious threats, those cultural religious threats as well.
Yeah, and I think that's just what that is it's a kind of naivete, and I'll put that's the best way I can say it, right? Just an ignorance. It's a soft way to say it. It's just an ignorance ultimately to the ways in which people of God have lived in the scriptures forever and everywhere else, right? It's the kind of disadvantage that we've experienced in America by, and I'll say this hesitantly, by Christianity being the home team, right? We've been in kind of ways spoiled in ways that are not normal for anywhere else in the world. Most other places, Christians have to live up next door to somebody who has a different religious background, and they have to figure out a way to make it work.
Right.
And it actually creates an environment where there's just grace flown across cultural, racial, and religious divides that create some really beautiful pictures of community. Right. And that's what, again, I keep going back to my roommate, right? Like, he was Hindu, right, and Muslim at one point in the midst of our conversation, in the midst of our living together, and still today, right? Like, he and I have great conversations about Christianity and faith and religion that has expanded my own understanding of religion, and even demonstrated the shortcomings of evangelicalism in terms of how to communicate the gospel cross-culturally. It's just been such a beautiful thing to learn from, and so I get it, right? But again, this sort of living is the way most other folks live in the world, and it's time for us to get on board. It's time for us to know what that looks like, because again, the gospel calls us to be bringing Jesus to those who are not like us. So if we just surround ourselves with people who are just like us, it's not that that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be Christians. You shouldn't talk to about it, but particularly in the commission was a move, a cross cultural move, where Jesus is like, go make disciples of all nations. That term nations is ethnos, which means ethnicity, which I said in the last podcast too, right? Like the disciples were hearing, go make disciples of people who aren't Jewish. And that would have been a mind blowing to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go be witnesses in these places that you are not normally. And if you follow the move of Christianity from ultimately Jesus beyond Rome, right, you're going to see that most Christians, as they maneuvered south, they maneuvered east. They were living in societies that were not the home team, and they did well most of the time.
Yeah. And made influence and made some people mad, but also drew people in, and that's just part of what it was.
Yeah. And it was uncomfortable.
Which is why they got all the letters. So trying to figure it out. But let's switch the subject matter just a little bit. That what we've been talking about is like the individual and the person that's living in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And how you might be processing multicultural neighbors increasingly. By the way, I will say this last thing on that. I continue to say that as much as we'd like to poo-poo what the value of being the majority or minority is, like people act like they don't think about that. They absolutely think about that. The issue is not that I have that there are South Asian or whatever, in this case for Prosper. The issue is not that there are some South Asian neighbors. It's that there's so many. And I feel like I'm being outnumbered. And because I'm being outnumbered, I become abnormal. I feel like I'm not the normal one, I think. And and I think that affects some sort of mental
thing. There's a fear. I mean, that's Pharaoh and the Israelites.
Yeah, that's very right. There's too many.
There's too many, and we need to do something.
We got to do something before there's too many.
They decide to rise up. Maybe they'll get a decision that they want to do to us what we did to them or whatever.
Because we've had South Asian neighbors.
Yeah, it's clearly I've been hanging out with one for 30 years.
Right, but the issue is wait. There's too many, and that's the question: is why does it matter? And there's something to that. So we can, but I want to move on into churches and church leaders.
Yeah.
Now, church leaders have built a lot of churches around their neighborhoods. And the ability to understand that mission field around their neighborhood and traditions and a whole bunch of things have been established. It's very difficult for a church to pick up and say, hey, we've got a whole different population. We're just going to take our church across town and we're going to white flight. Now, some churches can do that.
I'm about to say a lot of churches
some churches can do it, right?
They just call it something else.
Yeah, but most churches, a lot of churches can't just up and switch up buildings like that, right? Yeah. What would we say to the church leader who is in a neighborhood where the context, if you will, the multicultural context of ministry is changing, and how should they be processing this, and what are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I keep recognizing, like, I remember there was we shared a youth minister at one point. And I remember when I was walking by, he was talking to the youth one night or whatever, as I was walking by the youth, service. And I heard him say to the youth, he goes, I don't want you to ponder why you're here, but I want you to ponder that you're here in this moment, in this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that to the leader, right? Like, I think you need to, again, it's this believing perhaps in the sovereignty of God, that he didn't put you here by accident, but you're here for a reason. And maybe there's something you're supposed to do here that he has been prepping you or setting up for you. And so instead of going, okay, why are we here? Like, oh, this is changing. Like, no, let's just recognize we do have a building here. We do have a presence here. What can we do with this presence and this thing that God has given us? We thought was a good thing. We thought God was bringing us here and planting us here. Did
Right.
we think he was just planting us here for the white people or for the black people or whoever your homogenous group is? Or is it possible that because the narrative that we've seen through the scriptures is that Jesus and God is continually calling us into this nations building, in the sense of that of not nations building, of nations engagement, cross-culturally, We saw it in the beginning of the church as we look all through Acts. It's just literally God, like just almost intentionally in putting his finger into the milieu of the movement of Christianity in the beginning of Acts to say, I know you want to just build a Galilean church, but I'm going to bring the Holy Spirit, and now I'm going to show you. I'm going to have all the cultures. I'm going to make it so that all the cultures of Jews are in the town of Jerusalem when the Holy Spirit drops, and we're gonna create a church out of these multiple cultures so that they can go back to their churches and we can see the spread of the gospel. I'm going to make it to where Peter learns up on the roof that he shouldn't look at things that are unclean or call things that are unclean things that he thought were clean, unclean, whatever. I've got it backwards now. Yeah. But basically say, hey, I'm changing some of the rules here. I need you to be ready to accept some of the things that I've told you are unclean. They're going to be clean now. And then right after that, Cornelius's people show up and they say, hey, God sent us to find you to come and tell us about him.
Yeah.
And he shows up at Cornelius's house, and then the Holy Spirit drops there to make a point to say, I am doing the same thing I did with the Jews. I'm doing it with the Gentiles so that y'all know I did it the same way. So he's making something very intentional happen. And that's what we see all through Acts. And so here you are as a church, you're in a place, these people are showing up, the Spirit of God is still at work. The same Spirit that created the Church of Antioch is at work. So how do you tap into the Spirit of what God is doing and ask him to move? Now, that's the first thing. Is first you got to go, it's like, why am I here? No, know that you're here. Second is we keep thinking individually, even about our churches.
Right.
We tend to think that our church, okay, I'm just here. Like the most leaders literally think that what God's plan for them is that they're supposed to just look out for their church.
Right.
And I just don't jive with that. Yeah. I feel like God is bigger than that. I think he's more strategic than that. I think what he wants is for the church to be at work in an area. That's what we see all through the scriptures, particularly the letters. And so instead of thinking of it as my church, think about it as what is the scorecard of the church here in this community that God has put me in? What do I do with that? And what that should do, or what it can do, is it can actually see you reaching out to perhaps Christians that represent this growing diversity and starting to build collaboration and connection with them, not only because they're your brothers and sisters, but they may be the ones who guide you in how to guide your people and how to communicate more effectively the gospel to this new dynamic and new diversity that's coming in. So those are two things I would say to the leaders right off is remember, just take into consideration that God put you here and that he's still got work for you to do. And then B, like, think of the church beyond your church. How do you engage the community through collaboration?
I love that, man. I mean, it gets to the question of like, who's really leading in my head? Who's really leading the church, right? Yeah. Like, is the Spirit of God actually leading the church, and you're connected to what the Spirit is doing, and therefore he may be preparing or bringing in some new evolutions in your church that he wants to lead through you, pastor or leadership. And so who's actually leading the church? Is it the Spirit? Is it you and your levels of comfort, right, and your own ideas? Or is it the people, right? And because in this particular scenario, I think what pastors may get on board with what you said, but the people aren't on board. Right. And so when the people start to say, well, we don't want to make room for diverse worship experiences, or we don't want to adjust the way we understand hospitality. We do hospitality this way, but if we don't want to adjust our traditions in order to be palatable or to be welcoming in a way that would most impact our new multicultural guests. Like, we really just like what we do. And then sometimes I think in churches, the people are leading the pastor and the pastor is not leading the people. And sometimes it's the pastor trying to lead the Spirit of God rather than the Spirit of God leading the pastor. And it's got to be that the Spirit of God is moving and that the pastor or the leaders are connected to the movement of the Spirit of God and drawing their people into that same movement. And so all that is to add to your point of God. It is not a surprise to God that your church now has a context that's multicultural. It's more likely that you have been foreknown, it has been foreseen and foreknown that that would happen, and that you were placed in this time for this very particular reason, and that he knew that that was going to happen, and that you are expressly and intentionally put in this space, in this moment, in this time, to deal with that very specific missional opportunity that's right there in front of you. And so we can connect to say, what is God doing? What is he doing in our church? Who's leading really? And can I, leader, follow the Spirit of God where he's leading me? And then it is my job, as well as obviously the Spirit of God is in everyone. But as far as leadership goes, we can't allow the people to lead the church. It's got to be God's leading the church. We're getting our cues from him, and then we're going to follow who God is. It's not as clean cut as that hierarchy might suggest, but I find that the reason that people are most worried, hesitant about stepping into seizing the moment of the context, is because their people don't want to seize that, and they don't want to lose the people, and they don't want to lose the money, and therefore the salaries and the staff, and again, not because they're vain, but because it's hard. And no one wants to do that if you don't have to. So we would rather do stick with what's working, keep everybody happy. But I think if we do that, we may miss the next thing that God is doing in this country.
Yeah, and I think it's apropos that it's happening in North Texas, because it reminds me of the way in which, say, the Cowboys try to recruit as opposed to a much better team. I don't know, like the Steelers, right? Like
where are we going?
It is this sense of like this short-term gain. You know what I mean? It's like I'm building for the short term as opposed to building to win for a long time in the future. And that's one of the things that I think we have to keep remembering, right? We just got to follow the movement of the church right now. The beginning of the 20th century, in the early 1900s, whenever people were keeping track of where Christianity was, what they would say is 75% of those who called themselves Christians were in the north and the west part of the globe. But here we are in this time, and it's actually flipped, right? 75% of Christianity actually takes place outside of the North and the West. It's outside of Europe. It's outside of America. And what 25% is in those spaces. And even those 25%, a good portion of that 25% who would consider themselves to be Christians are folks who would not be considered Europeans. So we have Christianity growing across the world. And it used to be, from the West to the rest, right? But now it's everywhere to everyone. So you've got these almost like Christian headquarters where, historically what people might think is that the Christian headquarters was America, right? But as you see the growth of mission throughout the world, the headquarters of Christianity is actually larger in the Africas and the Koreas, in South America. Like that's where Christianity is growing. And many of those folks are looking at America as a place that needs Jesus and sending missionaries, right? So I say all that to recognize that if you start to look at the stats in America, people talk about the shrinking of the church. Well, what they're talking about is the shrinking of these predominantly white churches. But immigrant churches, churches of color, are growing exponentially, particularly those who are coming out of South America, South Asia, things of that nature, right? And so what we have to see, if I'm a pastor, I'm a leader, what I also have to recognize is if that stat keeps going, which it seems to be, is that I'm actually just managing decline if I stay with the playbook that I've been on. I have a church. Most of us, again, are just seeing maybe it's a slow decline, but it's just a decline. Churches are dying every day. White churches particularly are dying every day. So what needs to be, from a pastor standpoint, is to think future, right? The existence and the stability of your church into the future and the effectiveness of your church into the future is going to have to engage the diversity that's coming into your community. Even if you try to white flight away, you're still dealing with a declining population that's going to be going to that particular church, right? If the population is increasing from a minority standpoint and non-white, it's even in those rural spaces and those spaces that were considered these safe spaces are not going to look like that forever. So the really what I would say the pastor with great forethought would go, what I need to do is, even if my church is predominantly white, even if my area is predominantly white, I need to start preparing the people in my church to understand the value of diversity from the scriptures. I need to be weaving that into so much of the things that are happening and when I'm teaching, because it's all there. You don't even have to make it up. You just actually have to say it when you see it. You have to start building relationships and helping people know. One of the things that Threaded does is we do cultural intelligence training. That we do this with churches. I travel all over the United States and I'll go into churches and I'll try to teach leaders. Okay, here's the cultural values that are in your church. Here's the ones that are coming into your community. How well are you ready to receive this community? And how ready are your people to actually go out into this community and communicate the gospel effectively with these cultural values in mind?
Yeah.
And it's hard because a lot of churches don't think like that. And the ones that do, they have a little decline because their people are afraid of it, right? Because we're still dealing with discomfort, but they're set up now to be able to engage beautifully with the diversity that God is bringing to them. And if they do it well, and they actually are able to engage that diversity, whether in their homes and in their communities or even in their churches, they actually get to taste a little of that Revelation 7:9, all tribes, tongues, and nations that we are supposed to be heading toward. And so the key is, look, if you don't like diversity, you're going to have a hard time with heaven. You know what I mean? So you got to get ready for it here so you're ready for it there.
I think it's good. I think if you're a pastor or you're a leader, and you got to consider, and this is your context, and I would make the case whether it's your context or not, because the people in your body, in your church, are probably in spaces where they need to be able to be
and everybody under
outposts for the kingdom,
everybody under
for
20,
multiple cultures.
Everybody under 20. This is schools, already the diversity is already here. It's already flipped. It's already majority minority. Like, so the next generation of leaders, Christian leaders, need the leadership of the church to be able to prepare the soil for their work to come and be able to do what they need to do. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I think you're good. So I think that's the thing. Like, if you're a leader, man, you've got to consider like this cultural intelligence. And if you want to know more about that, you just reach out to us, because we can tease into that.
That's right.
I think also, man, I think it'd be really interesting for you to, in the interest of being future minded, and I know some churches do this, but take the demographic map around your area. Like, look into there's services out there. I can't recommend one right off the top of my head, but I know that there are services around that will give you a map around, like, hey, what are the cultures that are living around us? You may even be able to notate some trends. I think it might be worth it, especially in this moment right now, for us to see. Can we see some trends? What did it look like 2 years ago, 5 years ago? What's it like today? And begin to see, okay, these are the sort of nations and representation that we're starting to see embed themselves in our neighborhoods. I think that's an interesting step for you to take. And I also think that in the interest of asking the question, what does it look like to both bring the gospel to those cultures and to develop formational environments for those cultures? I think the next question is, what is happening in our body that needs adjustment? And this is the example of where you ask yourself, is it effort or is it impact, right? And this is where we talk a lot about how I raise kids and we tell them to clean the bathroom, and they're in there for an hour, and we go in there to check. They said they're done, and we can see the swipes of their rags or their towels as they were trying to do it, but the bathroom is not clean. There's evidence of effort, but there is no clean impact on the thing. And so when you walk into you walk in, you say, hey, didn't I tell you to clean the kitchen or clean the bathroom? And they're like, I did. What they said is they spent the effort. But what we're talking about is, no, I wanted a clean kitchen, a clean bathroom, not just you spreading dirt around, as my parents would say. And sometimes our missional efforts, the things we do in our churches, we spend a lot of effort. So we spread a lot of dirt around, and there's evidence of that. But it hasn't made the impact. And this is one of those places where that could be really a real thing, where we're like, man, we're trying to do something, but we haven't evaluated what we're doing in a way to tell whether it's actually making the impact that it ought to make. So I would encourage you to start to be curious about ways to look at your ministries and say, hey, what does impact look like? How does it change our methods? How does it change our structures and our tactics and strategies, so that we actually are able to make the impact and meet the need that's in front of us through the power of the Spirit that's working through us.
Yeah, and I think what's great is, as you do that, you don't have to do it alone.
Yes.
It's kind of, it's what we do, right? If I'm working with a church right now, I'm starting out, hey, they're going to be talking about these demographics. We're going to look at that. We're going to figure out, like, where does the gospel have to say about this? What does God have to say about this in his word? We're going to get that solid so you know how to communicate that to your people. We're going to teach you about cultural intelligence, cultural values, and then cultural intelligence. How do you engage? What capabilities do you need to build to be successful in this? We're then going to, you're going to, at the end of that, you're going to be like, oh, this is amazing. This is what we should be doing. We're going to go, well, you're going to be asking the question, well, how do we get to this point in 2025 where we have this divide? And we're going to show you a place in scripture. We're going to take you through some scripture and show you how we got here. And then we're going to take you through some courses that show you, like, this is what the effects of our racism and our inability to engage with one another in God's way created. And then we're going to show you how to get into relationship with people so that you can talk those things out and start to work on your reconciliation. And then we're going to demonstrate, like, okay, now that you're in reconciliation, how do you actually bring your gifts and your treasures together in such a way as to impact the community that you exist in, and therefore demonstrate the beautiful tapestry of God, the image of God in your community in such a way that people want to know, who is this God that threaded these people together? That's what we want to do with you. So as we kind of end here, like, this is something not just for church leaders, but this is for church people, right? So if you're a church person and you want to see your church become this and engage this, reach out to us. We are threaded.org. Get us in a call. We want to meet with your leader to be able to walk this through so that you can learn yourself. So it's exciting that we get to talk about it. Yeah. I hate that it's under these circumstances, but right. I think this is to your point that you said earlier. Yeah. This is not going away.
Right.
This diversity is coming. And our response to it has been consistent over the hundreds of years of America. We're seeing the same response. It's just a different colored person. That's the target of it.
Right.
It's not going away. So how can we, the church, move forward and be ready for this in a way that's going to glorify God? And that's what we hope we talked a little bit about today. So that's part of what we do here at Color Commentary, right? It's colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. And this is what we were talking about today, all those aspects.
Yeah.
We want you to be in the space and learning. So grateful that you guys were able to come. Antwuan, always good to be with you and talking about this. Continue to listen. We'll have some more podcasts coming your way. And of course, how we kind of end this all the time is reminding you that the reason we're here is to try to help you put on different lenses, to see things differently, to peek in on how people are thinking from a different cultural standpoint, so that you can be more successful as you go out into your place. And so that's why we tell you at the end of all of our episodes to make sure that you stay colored.